Ocean Infinity has completed its second week of searching the seabed of the southern Indian Ocean for the missing Malaysian airliner MH370, and it's making good progress. But how long will it stick around? Hi, everybody. Today is Tuesday, January 13th, and I'm here to give you the update on what exactly has been going on and what's going to happen next. I'm also going to give you some answers to some viewer questions. That's all coming up right now. Hi, everybody. Jeff Wise back with you for another episode of Finding MH370, the podcast where we dive deep into every aspect of the technical evidence in order to solve aviation's greatest mystery. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to all the new paying subscribers over at the show page at findingmh370.com. It seems like the podcast has been having a big impact and people are showing their appreciation, for which I am so grateful. And thank you also to those who subscribe to the YouTube channel. That it just does so much for making this work possible. I'm really grateful. I also want to give a shout out to Mike Reiser, one of the viewers who's been posting images. He says that he subscribes to this bathymetry software he's paid a license for, and it's really pretty cool. It shows the topology of the search area in really quite impressive detail. You can find it in the community section of this YouTube channel. I'll also put a link here. I always love it when members of the community pitch in and share their insights and findings and other contributions like that. Now, last week, you'll remember that Armada 8605 had managed to do just 3 days of searching before their efforts got cut short because of bad weather, and that only 2 of the AUVs were actually operational during that time due to mechanical problems with the third one. Well, the good news is that the AUVs are back in the water, and based on the movements of the mothership, work has been proceeding smoothly with no delays caused by the weather. Here you can see where the ship had been traveling up to January 6th, and here's where it was the last time that we got updates from Kevin Rupp earlier today. As you can see, they've made considerable progress. They're working up along this wide strip outside the 7th arc. They're getting pretty close to the end of the strip that Victor Ianello recommended back in 2023. So the question is, what happens when they get to the end of it? Will they keep searching, going onwards to the north? Will they call it good and switch their efforts to the similar rectangular area on the inside of the 7th arc? Personally, I hope that they keep going, because I think that, they should search as much as possible. Even though they've said that they're only going to search 15,000 square kilometers, we have a precedent for them going back and revisiting their stated goals. That's what they did back in 2018 when they said they were going to search a fairly limited amount of seabed, and they wound up searching over 100,000 square kilometers. So I hope they do that again. I hope they bust right through that white line there at the end and just keep going much further north, and then come back and do a similar box on the other side, unless of course they find the plane first. You never know. So yes, we're going to be on tenterhooks. We're going to have to wait to see what they decide to do on that front. And, remember how I said earlier that there was good news? So now it's time for the bad news. According to the MH370 families group and some other reliable sources, Armada 8605 is probably going to pack it in for the time being sometime tomorrow. It will sail back to Fremantle, scheduled to arrive there on January 19th at 21 Zulu, which that equates to 7 a.m. Tuesday, January 20th local time. And then it will just stick around for 1 day, and then it will set sail again the next day on January 20th at 22 Zulu, which is 8 a.m. local time on Wednesday, January 21st. So best case scenario, it sails back to the search area at the same speed, gets there around January 25th, maybe 26th, spends at least 2 more weeks searching. Worst case, they sail off somewhere else to go do, they've got some paying job maybe somewhere else. And then we find ourselves sitting on our hands again, waiting for them to come back and getting down to business again. I wish I had more details than that. You'll remember that around the new year, Ocean Infinity sent the MH370 family members group a couple of really detailed updates, included details about how much they were searching, what the weather was like, mechanical issues, and so forth. Well, unfortunately, the MH370 families group is now reporting that Ocean Infinity has told them it will no longer be providing those updates regularly. This is what they said. No new updates have been provided to family members since the last update on 5th January 2026. We have been made to understand that there will be no daily or weekly updates. Rather, we would be notified via periodic updates as and when available. Okay, that kind of sucks. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Okay, now I'd like to address some of the issues, disputes, arguments, and so on that have been arising in the comments section. Just a reminder, of course, I really do welcome feedback from readers and viewers and listeners. I've gotten some really fantastic tips and advice recently, and I do enjoy engaging with people, and so keep it coming, either here on the show page at Finding MH370 or right here on this YouTube channel. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is the subject of black boxes. I've been seeing a lot of confident statements in the comments to the effect of, okay, it's been 12 years. They've been sitting in salt water under crushing depths. There's just no way the data is going to be readable. To which I have a couple of responses. The first is to say, I wouldn't bet against a black box. These things are built incredibly rugged. They can survive transonic impact speeds, fire, pestilence, plague, you name it. They can take it. I have yet to hear of a case where a modern black box has gotten so abused that no data could be recovered. One of the worst in recent memory involved China Eastern Flight 5735, which was flying along over Guangxi province back in 2022, suddenly dove vertically into the mountainous terrain, pretty much the speed of sound, like hundreds and hundreds of miles per hour. The cockpit voice recorder was found. It was severely damaged, but the internal storage was intact. The flight data recorder was found buried 5 feet deep in the soil. So this was a high-speed impact. The flight data recorder was also severely damaged, but they sent it off to the US. Investigators at the NTSB were able to record the data from it. The data suggested that the plane had been intentionally crashed into the ground. So we have yet another case of pilot mass murder suicide. You add in Air India from 2025. These things are not as rare as they probably should be, in my estimation. Okay, so if a black box can survive that kind of abuse, I think it can survive sitting in salt water. Just one man's opinion. Frankly, we don't have a lot of examples of modern aircraft sitting on the bottom of the ocean for 12 years. Just my guess. Hopefully we'll find out soon. But that doesn't mean that if we find the black boxes, we will also find data. The one thing that black boxes are vulnerable to is losing power. And that can happen intentionally or not. Crucial data was missing from the black boxes in another apparent mass murder suicide, Silk Air Flight 185 in 1997, because apparently the perpetrator pulled the circuit breaker before taking the fatal plunge. And another case, there's missing data from the black boxes of Jeju Air Flight 2216. Because the plane was coming into land, it suffered a catastrophic power loss. A lot we don't understand about that crash, but it's even harder to make sense of because we do not have that data. The black boxes stopped recording because they didn't have power. So I agree that it might well be the case that the wreckage is found, but the black boxes are not telling us anything. However, I would say that the mystery would not remain unresolved because the mere fact of the plane's location would tell us a lot. For one thing, it would confirm that, yes, it was one of the pilots who took the plane. For a lot of people, that's a given, but I've argued here at length that I don't think it's a given at all. Also, because of the way the Inmarsat data works, every endpoint on the seabed tells us a story about how the plane got there. Its location along the seventh arc tells us how fast it flew and whether it made turns. And the distance from the seventh arc tells us how someone glided the plane to the surface. The condition of the wreckage will tell us how violent the impact was, and so forth. So yes, if the wreckage is found, I think that the case will be considered solved. Okay, another topic I'd like to address has to do with how Ocean Infinity is carrying out the seabed search. Here's a comment from viewer Chiva Pate or Pate, who writes, "The search pattern looks strange. I thought the search would be like a grid pattern and not spinning around like a drift car." That's a great question. What is up with this crazy Mexican jumping bean behavior on the part of Armada 8605? Well, the short answer is that the ship itself is not carrying out the scan. What it's doing is releasing these underwater robots, these autonomous underwater vehicles or AUVs, and then leaving them to run for a couple of days and then going to retrieve them. I've put up videos in the past that show them swimming together line abreast. Pretty sure it doesn't work like that. They don't coordinate and march together. They're deployed one at a time, and they're usually pretty distant from each other. But they know the location quite precisely, so they're able to do that lawn mowing pattern, as it were, moving up and down the seabed, making overlapping stripes with one another, in cooperation with one another, even though they're not at the same place at the same time. So they can do this because they have inertial reference systems inside them that detect acceleration, and from that are able to calculate their velocity, and from that their location. They also update that location for accuracy by using signals sent from the ship. It's a bit like how planes use GPS to update their inertial reference systems. A related question, Bite Saver asks, "Hello, Jeff. Do we know if they are able to review scans while at sea? How quickly can the data be seen? Is it by chance real time for someone operating on board Armada 8605? That is a great question. The AUVs are exchanging data with the ship, but it has to do with navigation and retrieval. That the gigabytes of data that the AUVs are generating with their side scan sonar beams will have to wait until the machines come back up to the surface, get retrieved, pulled up onto the stingers at the back of the ship, and then the operators aboard the ship plug in a data cable, and then they're off to the races. Back in 2018, during the first Ocean Infinity search, they had a bigger ship with crew members on board who would sit and review the data right then and there. But now it's a modern age. Everything is in the cloud. People can do data work like that remotely. And of course, you've got AI helping you out, looking for things. So I bet that if there's anything to spot, they'll find it really quickly. Okay, a couple of related bits to wrap things up. First, I want to show you a video that a viewer sent me. Apparently, it's from 2010, and it shows the same plane that carried MH370. The plane's designation is 9M-MRO. And the person who posted it says that you can hear the captain's announcement, and he says he's Zahari Shah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Captain speaking. My name is Armada. With me in the flight deck is
I'm not so sure. To me, it sounds like Norzad or something, but you can tell me what you think in the comments. Also, later in the video, you can see that the plane is passing over pretty much the exact same spot where the plane disappeared from radar in 2014. I don't think the video tells us anything that's going to help us solve the case, but it's pretty eerie. One final thing, a couple of people sent me a link to an interesting and somewhat related news story that I wanted to share with you. It seems that 3 years ago, a team of military veterans were rowing a boat across the Atlantic for charity. When the boat capsized, I guess they were in bad weather, but they got rescued and the boat drifted off. So it turns up last month on the coast of France. Now, why this is interesting to me, it's a great illustration of how if you leave things to drift in the open ocean, they get colonized by goose barnacles. And right now I'm collecting data that hopefully will help us definitively say how long the flaperon was in the water before it came ashore on Reunion Island, based on the barnacles growing on it. that could be a key piece of evidence for solving the case once and for all. These barnacles on the rowboat grew in a different patch of ocean. They might be a different species, but it just goes to show how prevalent these critters are and how big they can get if given enough time. Okay, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, everybody. I've already plugged the show page enough today, but I would say if you want to get a free email alert when the next episode drops, that is where you can sign up for that. We're likely going to see some ship movement in the very near future. I'll be keeping track of that, and we'll be keeping you up to date about the status of the search. I also have some exciting new developments relating to the mystery that I'll be breaking soon. Until then, this is Jeff Wise. I'll see you next time.